Right, everybody. I'm going to give this just a moment to populate. It's late on. Gosh, it's 10:24. I swear to you, it feels like I just woke up today. We've been going crazy busy here the whole day, working on getting cameras situated. And before we really start in on all the stuff, I just want to go through and make sure all my cameras are working. Yep, there's camera 3. It looks a lot better. Still got a little hot spot right there. But that's looking good too. All right, cool. Yeah, so it's been a great day around here. Just spending time working on Session Ace stuff. I might as well start the stream off talking about one of the reasons why we're going to talk about what we're talking about tonight. I'm going to pull up my chat as I'm doing that. One of the things that we're talking about tonight, the main thing we're going to talk about tonight is in-ear monitor mixes. And one of those reasons is because of, put it over here in camera 2. What you see in my ear right here, I wish I could get a close-up there. If this was television, I'd have them do a close-up. I'm wearing the brand new Session Ace ESA version 3. And in the recorded version, I'll leave a note for myself to put something on the screen where you can see it. Anyway, I've been using these ESA version 3s in the prototype model for, gosh, 6 or 7 months at least now. And we've really been working hard. It took about 3 months longer than I would have liked, but you can go right now to sessionace.com and pre-order these at a special price of $425 for the entire package. That's the in-ear monitor, the Pelican case, all the accessories, several different types of cables. I'm using one of the stereo premium cables tonight. And we're only doing 500 units of those at the special pre-order price. After that, they shoot up to $550. So you save about $125 if you get in on the pre-order, and you do that now. So in-ear monitors, maybe I should. Some of you guys don't know. So for almost 8 years now, I've had this company, Session Ace, that's been a little side hustle, a little labor of love. It started with me designing and working with some people who knew how to build in-ear monitors, and I really got frustrated because I would spend anywhere from $300 to $1,000 on Universal Fit in-ear monitors. And you're saying, well, Brian, if you're going to spend $1,000, why didn't you buy a custom fit, a custom mold? Well, because I have a tendency to take these things off, set them down, they end up on the stage somewhere, and I'm going to step on them. It's going to happen. It might be a month after I buy them. It might be a year after I buy them. I'm going to step on them. Or I'm going to do something that completely trashes them. It never fails. Murphy always hits me. So the last pair that I stepped on was about a $500 set of Shure in-ear monitors. And before I bought another set, I thought, I don't even like the way these sound anyway. Why am I getting $500? How much does it cost to make these things? And that started about a 2-year journey that brought me to creating a set of in-ear monitors for myself. Flash forward. Now we're almost 8 years into it, and we've got this Session Ace ESA version 3. We've revised this thing 3 times based on my own real-world tests and based on your feedback from customers. And used to, I would tell people, at some point you need to see about getting into some in-ear monitors and being able to do your own monitor mixes live. And of course, if you're recording, and at one point it was more talk like, well, at some point, well, that day is here. There is no more at some point. I would say 9.5 out of every 10 gigs that I play, I'm using in-ear monitors, whether we don't have wedges on stage at all, or we're running click tracks for tempo checks. We may be running, there's a couple of gigs I have where we run full Ableton sessions with everything that the band is not playing. So we may have guitar, bass, drums, keys, 2 or 3 vocalists, and then everything else that you would normally hear in the studio version of whatever songs that we're playing, those are being handled by the backing tracks. And so to be able to do that, we've got all that stuff in Ableton, and we've got clicks, and we have cues that let us know what the arrangement is. Not everybody does that with their live gigs. I understand that. But now almost every church gig that I do, well, every church gig I do, but almost every church gig that I see anybody else do, including some of my students, they're using some kind of backing tracks, whether it's from there's an app called Playback for the iPad that's locked into a worship charts site and praise charts and a whole catalog of tunes for worship music where they have all the source tracks. And churches use those all over the world now to be able to fill in around their much smaller bands. Even the band that I play with on Sundays at my church gig, it's all pro-level players, but we can't cover when a song that people are used to hearing has 8 guitar parts and 9 keyboard parts. So we even run tracks to help get a really full sound, at least the sound people are used to. So this idea of the backing tracks and click tracks and in-ear monitor mixes as some sort of futuristic thing is no longer futuristic. It's here, it's today. And so hence the reason for something really good, a great in-ear monitor mix starts with the thing that you stick in your ear. And the popular fallacy is that to get the best isolation and the best sounding mix you can possibly get, that you've got to spend $800 or more, including, well, not including the cost of a visit to an audiologist and to have a fitting, to get these custom mold in-ear monitors. It's just not the truth. You can get an amazing sound if you've got the right thing in your ears. And it pains me every day when I see people using $20 and $30 sets of what essentially are meant to be just regular old earbuds, but they're shaped like an in-ear monitor, that want to also go out and gig with these. Part of my time I spend is with running front of house in both live band situations, church situations, theater situations, and you would be surprised the number of people under 30 that come in and they're just using their white Apple headphones to monitor their monitor mix through, which is the worst thing in the world for your hearing. You're getting zero isolation, and the mix you're going to get is going to sound horrible anyway. Between cranking up a horrible mix to get over all of that ambient sound, you're just going to ruin your ears. I can't tell you how many people I've had conversations with under 30 that I'm like, man, just let's find you something, and hence Session Ace. So even if you're taking sort of the $20 or $30 route to get something done, I'm here to tell you that there are some very inexpensive, comparatively inexpensive ways to get great sounding mixes in your ears, and you don't have to spend $600, $800, $1,000, $1,200, $1,500 to do it. Even the original model that I designed for myself, the Session Ace EST. It sounds like a set of studio monitors with a sub. The clarity is amazing. The high end, the low end, nice and robust and nice and rich, and it sets you back $200. And they'll last for years. You'll get years out of these things. So with the ESAs, we sort of stepped it up in version 3. The idea was to give you something that sounds larger than life, and especially in situations where I really want to make everything sound big, especially rock situations and contemporary situations where I want the sound stage to be huge. That's why we redesigned the ESAs, to give you more than just incredible clarity or a robust low end, but to make everything larger than life. So that ends my commercial. You can go to sessionace.com and check out the ESTs or the ESAs. Find something that's in your... they both sound amazing, by the way. I still use the ESTs on occasion here in the studio and live as well. So thus ends my my commercial, at least for now. But monitor mixes. So it's important what you put in your ears, because what you're hopefully hearing as you're putting your in-ear monitor mix together is, in a case of drummers, you're hearing what the microphones hear. And for me, when I'm putting my in-ear mix together for drums, I'm not trying to make it sound like it sounds when I don't have ears in. I'm trying to put together an in-ear monitor mix that lets me know exactly what the drums are hearing at each source, and then balance them in a way that, at least to me, if you've got a really true sounding set of in-ear monitors that you can trust the mix, and these I definitely have mixed records on these. I know how true they can be. The idea is I want to hear the kind of blend that the front of house guy is going to put together. And what I find for me is a lot of times I don't have to hit the drums nearly as hard, especially in amphitheater situations. I would always get in a situation before I had these in-ears and before I was using in-ears where I would just have to beat the crap out of the drums, hoping to get a good sound to me, around me, because especially in an amphitheater, the sound just goes everywhere. And so when it goes everywhere, it's gone. The second you hit the kick drum, it's almost like sometimes it's like just hitting a wall. It's just like the sound goes away. So I found a lot of times with amphitheaters especially, I would overplay. I would hit the drums so hard that it was actually harder for me to really get the touch and the sound that I wanted on the drums because I was just hitting too hard. The great thing about these in-ear monitors, I can put a mix together that lets me know what the mics are hearing at each source, and then also allows me to be able to get a good mix, to get an idea of what I'm sending to the front of house person. And then from there, I bring in the band. Tonight, I'm going to try and, as we're putting this together, put a pretty balanced mix of things together. But as I'm putting on my own in-ear monitor mix, you might be surprised what I do in terms of who I hear and who I don't. Let's kind of make this simple. Let's make this very simple. Let's break it down into parts of the chain. And the one we've been talking about the most so far is what goes into your ear. Just like before the microphones in a recording studio, the more important thing is what is sitting in front of the microphone. A really bad snare drum through any microphone, whether it's this SM57 or a much more expensive microphone, a bad sounding snare drum is going to sound bad no matter what you put in there. It's the same thing with ears. If you've got a set of in-ear monitors that does not reproduce the sound incredibly well, with crisp but not hyped highs, rich and detailed mids that aren't harsh, and lows that aren't overhyped. If you've got a nice balanced in-ear monitor that really gives you back something with some accuracy, you got a good shot at getting a good in-ear monitor mix. That's the first part. So what goes in your head, in your ears? The next part of that is, what are you driving the ears with? This sounds like a 101 thing, but I've shown up to gigs where people had something to put in their ears but nothing to drive them. These things don't drive themselves. I can stick them in my ear, and if I don't have something to plug the other end of this into, I won't unplug myself right now, but if I don't have something for me to plug myself into, then it doesn't do very much good. And most places that you go aren't going to have something. Now, there's a few different options that you can have when you're going to plug into something. The two easiest are going to be something like, well, what I'm using right this second, not this one, but one exactly like it, is a headphone mixer. This is just a basic, this is a four channel headphone mixer by Presonus. And in the back, I can either send it a stereo mix left and right, or it has a mono button. So if I only get one monitor channel from the front of house, what you'd normally have come to a wedge, you just take whatever gets plugged into that wedge, generally that signal that goes into whatever you're using to drive these. If I've just got a mono signal, I put it in the left, I hit the mono button, and now I hear the exact same thing in my left and right ear. Most of the time I ask for a stereo mix if I can get it, because with a stereo mix I can pan things out around the drums and get a real accurate picture of what my drums sound like, because with a good set of in-ear monitors that has at least 23 to 28 dB of isolation, if not a little more, you're not going to really be able to hear what's coming off of the instrument itself very well. The rejection you get from that isolation is going to be pretty significant. So you want to be able to, I like to have that stereo mix so that I can get a nice picture of the drums. And then once that happens, then we can have some kind of level control for what's into my head. We're going to talk about do's and don'ts about doing this in a second. I just want to show you the options first. So now headphone mixers, depending on what you get, these things range anywhere from $50 to $150. It depends on what you get. There are different kinds of brands. Guitar Center has a house brand that's not too bad. This Presonus is about $100. And then there's some that are much more expensive than that. I've got an analog, hand-built headphone driver that I'll pull out occasionally, but the only reason I don't use it more is it costs about $250. And I just don't want to take that out on the road with me very much. Another low-cost alternative would be something like this. And this is just a mixer from Behringer. In this case, this is the Xenix 802. You can find smaller ones that have only 5 channels. That's the 502. I'll tell you why I generally choose to use the 802 and why it's probably a good option for you. Depending on the cabling that you need to go from front of house to you, if you don't have the correct cabling and front of house doesn't have the correct cabling, this doesn't matter. So you need as many options as you can for getting out of wherever they're sending you the mix from. So usually I carry all the different types of cables, whether it's XLR male and female, to 1/4 inch male. I carry both of those because you'd be surprised at what you get sometimes. You'd think it would be one thing all the time. You'd think it'd always be a female XLR to a male 1/4, but not always. It depends on what you're coming out of. The great thing about having a mixer like this that has 2 XLR inputs is if they have XLR outs where they're coming out female from the front of house console or stage box, and you're going in XLR male here into these first 2, you can get a stereo mix. If they're not, then you can just go into one and pan it into the center. But then you also have this option of if you either have the cabling or they send you 2 1/4 inch, 1 or 2 1/4 inch cables, you can plug them here, you can plug them there, doesn't matter. So hopefully that's not confusing for you. It's really about having the more than you need as far as the different types of plugs to get into your system. And so in this case, I would plug my mix in either stereo or mono. If it's stereo, I make sure it's panned. If I use one of these stereo channels, it's already left and right going in. One of the reasons why I generally take one of these is because on some gigs I'll run a click track, and let's see, how loud should the pack be? Oh, that's a good question, Paul. The pack should only be as loud as you need to, you should only run as much volume as you need to hear comfortably. One of the advantages of using an in-ear monitor is that you don't have to listen as loud. You know, we're all used to most of us, especially if you're my age, are used to floor monitors where you would always crank those floor monitors so that you could get over the sound of the drums. And so generally, if I was playing a loud rock gig, I'd need 1 or 2 really loud wedges. Well, everything would be super loud. From the time I was about 15, I was always wearing some kind of hearing protection. The problem with things like foam plugs is they kill all the fidelity. So what do you do when all the high end's gone? You just crank it up even louder. So thankfully, I haven't lost any of my hearing because I've used hearing protection. But all in all, it makes for a really bad listening experience. Because even if you're not using hearing protection, eventually you're going to lose your hearing, and it's going to be an awful, awful thing. But as far as with your monitor mix, I would say 85 dB, we learn in the studio that 85 dB is the flattest that we hear. Now, you can't measure that while you're sitting and listening, but I would say somewhere around 80-ish dB going into your ears is perfectly safe. You can listen to 80 dB loudness for hours and hours and hours and not get ear fatigue and not ruin anything in your hearing, not damage anything in the internal plumbing of your ears. So I would say we're going to talk about how to put a mix together, but as far as how loud it ends up being, your in-ear monitor mix should be comfortably loud. At first, the one thing that's different about an in-ear monitor mix versus a wedge is that you don't have all this air moving at you. You have to get used to that. With floor monitors, between the floor monitors and hearing what's coming like off the drums, you're really hearing and feeling at the same time. And a lot of that feeling is if you've got one or two really loud wedges, they're really pushing a lot of air at you, a lot of sound pressure at you. A lot of those waves have weight to them, and you're going to miss that. And so a lot of times people will sort of make their in-ear monitor mixes extra loud because what they're missing is that. So really think about what is your ideal listening experience for music that you love. And start with that. So for me, what I want to do is I want to start by putting a mix together of my drums. And the thing that I tell everybody is to put together a mix that starts with as much of you as you need to do what you need to do. And not just as loud as you need, but dynamically. When you play soft, are you able to still hear yourself? And when you play loud, can you hear yourself comfortably? But if you're a rock guitar player, when you really crank the volume, say for taking a lead, some kind of solo, you don't want it to pull your head off. You want it to be a comfortable listen. So make sure that you find a range of volume where that just feels nice and comfortable. And then you're going to build the mix around that. And, different people will start in different places. We'll talk about the mix in a second because I'm not done with all of our drivers. But it really is just a matter of building things up around you that give you as much as what you need to hear from these different sources. So I would say a comfortable listening experience, something that you could listen to for 2 or 3 or 4 hours and pull off your ears and not feel like your ears are tired. That's kind of a good analogy, I guess. Tired. So that's not the only way you can drive your ears. I carry this little pack around with me to most of my gigs, and about 50% of the time I'll use it. This is my wireless pack, and inside this little padded bag, I've got a Shure PSM 300. And this is the cheapest that you can get into a wireless set of in-ear wireless transmitter receiver. This is the cheapest you can get in, and it still sounds pretty good. The noise floor is not too bad on these. Now, you can get much more expensive. You can spend $2,000 or $3,000 and really go high end on the amplifiers that get super, super clean. You don't really need it if you've got a good set of in-ear monitors. So with the PSM 300, you've got this receiver, and just like our headphone mixer and our Behringer mixer, where we get some kind of stereo or mono signal from front of house and plug it into one of these two to drive it. We do the same thing. There's a ton of cables in here. We do the same thing with a wireless unit, and I sort of pre-wire mine ahead of time. These have a 1/4-inch input, and so I'll carry in a separate bag, in my tech bag, I carry a couple of long 1/4-inch cables in case the outputs that front of house is sending to me is 1/4-inch. Or if I've got to run a really long distance and I want to run a balanced connection, then I've got this adapter cable that goes from 1/4-inch balanced to XLR female. And then I can, from there, run any size mic cable into a stage box or a digital mixer or whatever the front of house is using to get me my signal. And so this one, obviously the last gig I had, I only got a mono setup because I have just one of them sitting here. But in my tech bag, I have another one of these for when I get a stereo signal, for those times I can get a stereo signal. So along with that comes this pack. And so I usually recommend for people to spend the extra $100 and get the upgraded P3RA pack because it's made of metal and not plastic. And also it has a display on it that lets you see what the frequencies are that you're using. It lets you see the battery level in an LED gauge or LCD gauge. You can really see how much you've got left on your battery. This whole system with the receiver and the receiver, which is this, and the transmitter, and then with the little padded gator case that comes with it, about $900. And that's not counting the ears. They come with a set of ears, but it's the cheapest ones that Shure makes, the $100 ones. And they sound like complete garbage. Your iPhone stuff sounds better than, your iPhone earbuds sound better than those that come stock with these. So, but all of the Session Ace ear monitors work incredibly well with these wireless packs. And that's the thing about the Session Ace IEMs is they're compatible with every kind. And so you won't have a problem using any kind of wireless unit with those in-ear monitors. So really those are your three main choices as far as driving the ears. So that's stage number 2 in this whole setup. You've got to have the thing that goes into your ear that you're listening with, and then you've got to have, whether it's a wireless unit like this or something that's wired, like the headphone amp, or preferably one of these. One of the things that I do that's a little different, and it's the reason why, kind of as an aside, I use a mixer. Sometimes on gigs, I have a click track that I use that the rest of the band doesn't hear. Sometimes I'll just use it to make sure that we start off every tune at the right tempo. So I'll run it for like the first 8 to 16 bars, and I'll use it to count off. I've got my set list in an iPad, and I'm able to just go through and program in all the correct tempos ahead of time. So I just go from song to song to song, hit start on the thing, get the tempo for the song we're about to play, count it off, at a certain point, shut it off. So I want to be able to monitor that before or at the same time as I'm listening to my in-ear mix from front of house, but no one else in the band is listening to the click. So I don't need to waste a channel over there on front of house. I just put it into a channel here on my personal mixer, and then if I want more, if my click track is here in 3/4 and I need more of my click or less of my click, I've got one knob that I can turn that gives me more. If I'm with my in-ear mix here in 5/6, I can get my overall volume from one knob right there. So 2 knobs gives me everything I need. The other reason I use a mixer like this is on a reasonable amount of the gigs that I do, I'm the music director / traffic cop for the band. And so I need to be able to talk to the band. And so, especially if the whole band is hearing the click, then the nice thing about this kind of thing, especially if we're on a gig where maybe we don't have enough channels for me to have a talk back to the band, this has an auxiliary output where I can actually pre-mix my click and a microphone that I plug in so that I can talk to the band through that click channel. And so, yeah, so instead of taking an output of my click and going into direct box and sending it to front of house, instead I take this auxiliary out, this little series of red knobs right here, and I'll set my click at a reasonable level for the front of house guy. And then if I've got a microphone plugged here into channel 1 that I'm talking to the band to, I may put a little of that in there so I can hear myself in my ears. But then this red knob allows me to independently adjust how much of my talkback is going to the click track. And so I'll give it enough for everybody to hear themselves, and or for everybody to hear hear the click and hear me simultaneously. So I'll kind of do a little pre-mix of that and make sure that they can hear enough of that. Depending on where I run my click, which is getting lower and lower these days, surprisingly, I may need that extra ability to give myself a little bit more of my talk back, so I'm not shouting in the talk back. So that I can hear, what those people are hearing. So that's one of the other reasons why I use a mixer, because I may have some other things going into this that I need to do some things with, aside from what's happening there. So, so we've got 3 possibilities for driving these. Now, as far as controlling your mix, and this is, I actually have it set up so that we can look at this today. And yeah, so let me go to, let's see if this is going to work for us tonight. Oh, yeah, check that out. Nice. All right, I'm going to come over here a second. I'm going to move my camera a little bit. Oop. So you can kind of still see me while I talk about this. So how do we get the mix that we need for ourselves? And that's where this comes in. One of the conversations that I always have before a gig is with whoever is responsible for sound. Sometimes it may be a person in the band. If it's a wedding gig, it may be a singer in the band that's responsible for monitors and front of house and that kind of stuff. If it's a gig where I have a dedicated sound guy, I'll usually try and get a hold of that front of house guy, or a production manager, or whoever's really running point for the technical part of this. And I'm talking to that camera like I should be talking to that camera. I'll really look and see if I can find out who's responsible for making sure that I get a monitor mix. And I ask them, well, what console are you using? What system are you using? And I want to make sure that I have that app on my iPad. And at this point, I pretty much have, let's see if I can back out of this without it. I've got, between this folder and another folder, I've got most of the digital mixers. These are the ones that I use most of the time. I have a whole other folder that I use for the stuff that's either super old or stuff that I don't see very much. And so instead of cluttering up one folder with 50 of these, I just picked the ones I use the most. Anyway, so in some cases, you've got dedicated, like this mix queue that you see there is a dedicated mix app just for your monitor mixes. A lot of cases too, I'll also have the actual app for the entire board in case I need that. But in this case, we're using the Wing, the Behringer Wing, to do headphone mixes tonight. Oh, there's one I did not talk about that we'll talk about in just a second. And so this app that you're looking at here, this is actually the controller for the Behringer Wing that we do all of our headphone mixes here with. I'm going to segue into studio stuff here. What app is it? How do you connect it? Okay, yeah. So with all of these iPad apps, they all work off of Wi-Fi. So once I know what system they're using as far as the app goes, usually the day that I hit for wherever I'm at playing, I'll find out what is the network that I need to be on and what is the password. And 9 times out of 10 now, most front of house guys or most production managers are totally cool with that. They'll even help you set it up so that you set it up correctly. But as long as you've got the right app for the right version of firmware for whatever they're using, hopefully they've updated their firmware. Behringer's the only one that's weird about that, where you'll have a version of the app that doesn't work with the version of the firmware that's on their mixer. It can get a little weird there, but most of the time, if you've got the right app, and as soon as they give you the login credentials and you log into Wi-Fi just like you would do with your phone, then all of a sudden you're in. And depending on what mixer they're using, they can sort of give you whatever permissions you need to be on what you need to see most of the time. So if you're messing with your mix, you're not messing with the front of house mix. They definitely don't want that. But they can silo you. if most guys now know how to do this, so it's not a big deal. So yeah, just an iPad and this whatever app works for the system that you're going to be using for that particular gig. Most of these apps are free. In fact, I think all of them are free. So you might as well just download all of them, and that way you got them. And then it's just a matter of getting on the network. Now, from there, you find out which mix you're on. In this case, this is the mix that we're using. You're hearing my in-ear monitor mix right now as we're doing this. So, so the mix that you're looking at right now is my in-ear monitor mix. In fact, this is the channel that my speaking voice is on right now. And if I grab this fader and turn it down, I can talk all day long and you don't hear me at all. Except you might hear me a little bit in the overheads. Yeah. So, or if I'm too loud over here and I'm blowing you out, see there I'm 6 dB louder than I should be. So yeah, so that fader right there controls my voice and how much of my voice that I'm hearing. And so, so this app that I'm using allows me to go through and put together the mix that I want based on the channels that are in the system. And with most of these now, occasionally you'll get front of house people or monitor people that aren't really keen on this. And they'll want to do it themselves, or they'll have a dedicated monitor guy, and you just tell them what you need at that point, and they'll get it up and down for you and get you as close as you can. I like having control over my mix because in the middle of the gig, I may need to hear more or less of something. I can't tell you how many times a microphone has started feeding back because somebody pointed it down into a wedge or something weird happened with a wireless mic, and I need to immediately go and mute that or it's going to blow my ears out. I want to be able to have that at my fingertips. I'm constantly riding things like tracks because most people don't normalize their tracks. And so you may have tracks for one song that are super hot and another song they're almost inaudible, and I need to bring them up. So I like to have them on a fader so I can just grab those tracks from tune to tune and be able to adjust where those tracks are in relationship to me, because you know, I may be playing with the click, but I may not be grooving well with the tracks. The feel may be off. You know, you're sitting and playing. What's one of the? Country Girl is one of those. The Luke Bryan tune. There's that one. There's another country tune I can't remember right this second. It'll come to me. Big and Rich tune. Save a Horse, Ride a Cowboy. It's got a little swing in it. But the click is just kind of a straight quarter note click thing. Well, if I don't have that same kind of swing in my playing, then I'm not really locking with the tracks. So I want to be able to hear enough of the tracks to be able to make sure that I'm playing the right. It's different with tracks. When you're just doing a band, you infuse the feel and the band follows suit. But when you're playing with tracks, your feel is really dictated by the tracks. If the tracks swing a little bit, you've got to swing a little bit. If the tracks, especially if it's a programmed electronic thing, I'm doing a Lady Gaga thing or something, Rihanna tune, like those things are pretty well gridded. So I need to make sure I'm playing really well to the grid so that I'm in alignment with those tracks. So I like to have that on a fader so I can reach over here and make those adjustments as I go. So as far as before we going to where I want to go now, which is putting your mix together, I want to show you one other thing. I'll go back here to my live room cam. Yep. I'm going to go over to camera 3 or 4. Let's see. Which one's easier to see? Okay. Yeah, right here. I'll show it to you in this camera. I don't have this on right now. You unplug it so I can turn it around. But this is another type of personal monitor mixer that you'll see in studios and on live gigs, and especially on church gigs. On my church gig, I have the Allen and Heath version of this kind of system where everything is contained in this personal mixer. And in the case of this Behringer Power Play, I have 16 channels, and you can kind of see that we've got them here. Kick, snare, tom 1, tom 2, floor tom. The click is right here. Overheads in a stereo pair. Rooms. The track coming back is a stereo group. Bass, talkback, and verb. So apparently this the last time I used this was a few weeks ago when I was doing bass and drums together with some pre-recorded music. So a lot of times here in our studio, I have two options for doing headphone mixes. If it's headphone mixes where I'm just by myself, I'll mix through and listen through the wing like what we're doing tonight. But if we have a full rhythm section, I've got these stations all around the studio. And so we've got 5 or 6 of these, so that as we're doing guitar, bass, drums, and keys, and a scratch vocal, everybody can plug in and have their own mix. And the way this works, let me see if I can plug this in. This cable's not long enough to get over here. When it's actually getting its power from its connection here, so that'll have to work. I know it's out of focus, but yeah, we don't have autofocus on this camera. So basically what happens is you select the channel that you want to mix, and you just turn this knob to turn it up or down. And so you do that for all 16 of those channels. You've got, in this particular one, you've got an overall volume at the top. You've also got an EQ. I'm sorry about that being out of focus, but yeah, so you've got an EQ section for each channel, and you can kind of EQ things a little bit to make them sound even better in your phones. And so if we're doing rhythm section tracking, we're using one of these. Like I said, I use one of those very similar to this, but made by Allen and Heath. That's on my church gig every Sunday. I'll see it tomorrow. And so, getting comfortable with all the different ways that you can mix your in-ears is really important. With this one, the great thing about the PowerPlay and most of these personal monitor mix boxes is that you just plug your ears right into the back of them, and then you've got complete control of everything there. I just remind you, and the Session Ace ears come with these. Session Ace is one of the only companies that actually includes this in the box. We have a 10-foot extension cable that comes with the package. It's a 1/8-inch connections on either side, and you get a couple of 1/8 to 1/4-inch adapters. Like in this case, this one has a 1/4-inch input to get into the system, or output to get into the system. The Allen and Heath I use has an 1/8-inch connection. So that one cable can work with either system. If I need to step up to the 1/4-inch, that's in the box too. It's one of the only companies I've ever seen that they include your 10-inch extension cable for using, whether it's in the studio or live as well. So yeah, so that's the aside is usually in a studio, and a lot of times with churches, you'll see these personal mixes, and they have anywhere from 16 to 32 channels usually. I think the Allen Heath will stack into groups, so you have access to most everything. Session Ace Talk really got me excited. Man, thank you so much for ordering a set of those, Paul. You're going to love them. They'll be here before you know it, and I think it's going to be a game changer for you, for sure. Yeah, Paul, that's watching over on YouTube right now, was the first person to put his money down for a set of the Session Ace ESA version 3s, and he's been very patiently waiting, checking in every week, like, are they ready yet? Are they ready yet? I'm like, not quite ready yet, dude. But when you've been very patient, Paul. Thank you very much. All right, so I think that takes care of that much of it in terms of all the possibilities for being able to get to your mix. Let me flip back over for a second, and we'll do this live as we're talking. We're going to put together, let's see, iPad big. There we go. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start by muting everything but my voice. So right now, in this case, you might start with all your faders down. You might not have mute control like I do here, but I don't want to mess up the mix that I've got here already, since I worked on it all day today. Anyway, so what you want to do, and I'll turn my mic off for a second, is you want to start with yourself. and we're doing drums tonight, so it's a little bit more complicated of a proposition, but you want to start with the thing that's most important for you to hear. So in this case, I'm going to start with the kick drum. I'm going to unmute this thing. You may start with your fader low. Just a few things to make sure. You'll notice that my master in this case is at negative 0.3, so I'm just a little under 0. You want to be careful about gain staging through all of this. If your front of house guy has done a great job with input gain staging, you should have plenty of level for everything that you need. If for some reason you're at the top of the fader for anything, one of two things is a problem. Either your gain staging isn't right for your the way you're driving your in-ears, or the gain staging getting into wherever those sources is not correct. So what I usually tell people is if you're there's different ways to gain stage for yourself, but like in the case of one of these mixers like you see here, I usually tell people start with any output faders at about maybe 10 o'clock. So if you have a main output fader, put it at 10 o'clock, and then start with your kick drum over here on your whatever your digital mixer is. Start with it around 0 or at 0, and then I'm going to turn this mic off, and then you're just going to kick the kick. Now, depending on how loud that is, you may need to adjust. Look, when you hit that kick drum, I usually, if I'm in an app, I can see what the meters are. You want to see how much level you're driving. Normally, you want to be probably 10 or 12 dB below 0, if you can get it, as a starting place. And then you're going to adjust your output volume of whatever's driving. Like I'm using a headphone amp over here. You want to adjust your output so that it's at a comfortable level. Now, why am I not adjusting? We're going to get deep in the weeds tonight. I'm going to do you a favor tonight. Why am I not driving all the way to 0 on my meters with just the kick drum? Well, you're going to have anywhere from 12 to 24 to 32 sources. And the more things that you stack into that mix, the more of the headroom you're going to eat up. So you want to try and set your mix up and get it to where it's set so that you've got plenty of headroom. Even after you add everything in, you still want to have plenty of headroom above, but you got to be careful, because if you're not feeding enough signal from this output of this mixer into whatever's driving your ears, you're probably going to get a high noise floor. So you're going to start to hear some hiss, or you may hear some trash in the signal. One way that I know that I've got a really good mix, whether it's in the studio or it's live, if there's a noise floor at all, I don't want it to be electronic. I don't want to hear hisses or rumbles. If I have a noise floor, I want it to be ambient noise. If it's a live gig, maybe I'm hearing some of the stuff immediately going on around me when not much is happening. But if I can avoid it as much as possible, I don't want a lot of hiss. I don't want a lot of rumble. So that's one of the ways that just to tell you that you can check your gain staging. If you got a meter like I have on this mixer to my side here, maybe I'm hitting all green lights. Maybe I'm peaking with this Behringer here. I'll show you well, you can't see it in the overhead. Let's see. This is where we're having somebody. All right, so here in this Behringer, there's some LEDs on the side. You've got kind of a 4-segment LED, and you've got 2 green lights, a yellow light, and a red clip light. Definitely want to stay away from the red clip light. And what I try and do most of the time is I'm trying to make sure that I'm nailing the top green that's at 0. Maybe when I hit that kick drum, that's where it hits, or when I've got a full mix going. Maybe occasionally I sneak into this yellow. But if I'm always in the yellow, I'm not too far away from being in the red. So that's a visual indicator. If I don't have meters, I listen for distortion. I know I'm clipping if I hear any kind of audible distortion. So I'll put that kick drum at a comfortable level, and then I'll make sure that I've got my overall drive for, like in this case, this headphone amp is loud enough that I hear that kick drum comfortably. And I also know I'm going to get some of it when I open up these other mics too. So then I go into my snare drum. I just do the exact same. Oh, in this case, I actually have a sub kick. Let me flip back over and you can kind of see that. That was my inside kick drum mic. I've got a sub kick here. Now, if you're watching this live stream on your phone or on your computer speakers, you heard zero difference in that. You heard absolutely no difference at all in what I just did. But in my ears, where I get nice extended low end, I heard more of the sub come in. If you're listening on a great set of reference monitors, hopefully you heard some great low end come into there. And then I start to roll in. If I've got one or two snare drum mics, I roll those in. And I just do a kick and snare. Okay, yeah, and if anything, I use this bottom mic just to brighten that up a little bit. The next thing I go to is my overheads. And I try the kick and snare first, but then very quickly, I'll just play a little bit around the kit. Now, ideally, I should get most of the sound I'm looking for out of the overheads. In the studio, definitely. But a lot of times, if you're playing to the mics, which you should be doing if you're playing in a big amphitheater, you should be playing to the mics. I mean, obviously you're playing the audience visually, but sonically you should be have my beats on. I heard a difference. Cool, awesome. I'm glad. Yeah, if you've got something that's got some low end extension, you'll hear little things like that. Yeah, you should hear a lot of the kit when the overheads are open. I think I'm hearing a little bit of the verb come through here too, which, yeah, I'm hearing a little of the verb come through here, but that's cool. That's okay. I've got a little bit of a tight verb set up for the mix, which you may be hearing too. So yeah, so that's just kick, snare, and overheads, and then I'll just put in the other stuff that I need, which in this case is it's marked rack tom 2 and floor tom on here. So I should have those. You can kind of see them on the meters there. Yeah, Paul, I probably have. Let's go over here. I'll let you let you see. Now, one of the things that you won't have control over too much. Let's see. Actually, I have some verb right there, so I can pull this down. That should have overall. That should be a lot less verb. So usually, like in this case, it's marked. You'll see drum verb there. I can have more or less verb. In this case, let's see what it sounds like without very much verb. I just realized something. You know what? Actually, you're getting twice the drums. There we go. Okay. I was actually coming back through Pro Tools. Let me do something about that. Hang on. straight. Yeah, actually, you're hearing. I forgot I had my Pro Tools on here. Check, check, check. Yeah, you're actually here. You were hearing the feed through the Pro Tools as well. Sorry about that. Yeah, so now this is the mix with not a lot of verb. So now you should hear a lot more verb. If I've got that set up correctly, that should be a lot more verb, actually. Let's see. Yep, that's going to the live stream. Anyway, so yeah, usually you'll have some kind of control over your verb depending on how the front of house guy has things set up. You may have something. In this case, I can get verb from a few different places. I can get it from the Wing. I can get it from Pro Tools. I can get it from a few different places. All right, so you may want to put a little bit of hi-hat mic in there too. So that's got a little bit of hi-hat in there. And now what I have, at least in my ears, now what it sounds like on the mix coming out, well, I don't know. I know that in my ears, I get a nice balance of everything. I can hear everything. Now, I'm going to go, you don't have this necessarily for live, but here in the studio, I've got a pair of room mics, and I'm going to play with one hand, and I'm going to roll these room mics in, and you can kind of hear what these things are doing. I have to be careful with those room mics because they can sound a little distant. I usually roll them in enough to just kind of support the sound and give it a little bit larger than life kind of thing. So I'm probably going to put them here. All right. So from there, it's not set up this way in tonight's session, but from there, for me as a drummer, once I get a sound, and I may only have 30 seconds to do this. We're taking a lot of time here on the web stream to do this, but I may only have 30 seconds to make this happen. And so, I'll very quickly put something together that I can work with, that gives me what I need, and then I start to dial everything else in that I'm going to need to hear. And generally, if I'm using a click track, I'll start with the click. So real quick, I do have a click coming from a Pro Tools session here for some stuff I got to record. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can pull this up. And let's see if I've got a click coming out of here. Woo! Plenty of click there, boy. So yeah, as I'm playing, I'm going to make some adjustments in that click. Now, I don't know if that's the right groove for whatever this session is that I've got sitting here, but that's the click I have to work with. And so I put it at a volume that works for me. I don't have it just killing my ears. In fact, if I'm confident enough with it that the level stays the same from song to song to song, on a live gig, or if it stays exactly the same as I'm here in the studio, I may actually trim that back a little bit so that when I'm really where I want to sit on it, it's not pinging my ear really, really hard. Again, no hearing damage. We want to do this in a way where you don't get hearing damage. Now, then I start to bring in the other things I need. Is the live stream supposed to be hearing the click? You should be hearing the click because I'm hearing the click. Let's see. Let's, because it's coming through. Let's see. It's just a tick, dook, dook, dook. Let me play it a second. Oh, actually, you're not. Why? Oh, you know why you're not? That's because I'm actually on. Let's see. There you go. Yeah, this template that's in Wing is actually set up for a session, and I think there you go. Hey, thanks for calling to my attention. I appreciate it. Now you should hear it. All right, so I'll turn the mic off. Actually, I think that's right for this session. I think this session is like a fast surf 10. I'm almost sure it is because all these others I've been doing are fast. But yeah, so this I just get it at a volume that's comfortable, that I can still hear myself, and I still kind of know where the click is. Yeah, there you go. Now you're hearing it. So yeah, I'm just adjusting that that click volume to be exactly where I need it to be for the thing that I'm working on. And while we're doing that, let me make sure that you're going to hear these tracks too. Make sure it's in all the tracks. There we go. Okay. So now that I've got me, and the click where I can hear myself comfortably well, I'm not blowing myself out in my ears, I can hear the click well enough that when I play right on it, it's where it needs to be for me. It's sitting in the mix. It's not just like an ice pick in my ear. And if I get off, I know pretty quickly that I'm off, which hopefully that doesn't happen. But if it were to happen, I'd be able to find it. But then the thing I do is I go in and I just prioritize what I need to hear next. Generally, if it's a tracks gig, I go to the tracks next, believe it or not. I want to make sure that at least the overall general level of the tracks are just tucked in a little bit underneath the drums, so that when I'm playing, I can hear them, but they're not drowning out the sound of the drums. Then I move to bass guitar, and if there's key bass, I'll get that in as well. And so I just, as we're going, I'm rolling in the bass as much as I need to hear it, so that it really feels like the drums and the bass are one thing, and they really lock together well. And then I just start going systematically through each instrument. I go, if I've got two guitar players, I like stereo mixes because I can pan the two guitar players, one left and one right. When you have a mono mix, that picture fills up pretty quickly, and it's a real delicate balancing act. Like if you got two guitar players and they're both exactly in the same spot, it's really just a version of who do you need to hear louder, and is both of those loud enough to get over the sound of everything else that's right in the center. Stereo mix is great because I can actually listen to each guitar lower. I can put one in the left, one in the right. I can get them in a reasonable volume, and I've got clarity. I can hear exactly what both those guys are doing separately, and if the mix is nice and balanced, then it turns out pretty cohesively at that point. Then I'll bring in keyboards. It really depends on the keyboard setup. Is it one keyboard player with two keyboards? Or is it two keyboard players playing separately. If I have two separate keyboard players, a lot of times I do the same thing. I split them left and right and go wide. Keyboard players, I know you like your stereo mixes. Randy Harper likes his stereo mixes for his keys. For me, I don't need to hear all the slushy, cool stereo stuff you're doing. I just need to hear your part. So, I may adjust it so that it's pretty wide in the left side. Maybe if it's a stereo keyboard, I may take the left and go all the way left and take the right and go to like 10 o'clock so that it's a wide left. It's not all the way to the left. It's kind of left to left center. And then Uncle Randy, man, yeah. I can't tell you how many times we've gone around the horn about his stereo keyboards. So yeah, I may go real narrow left or wide left if I kind of bring a channel in a little close to center. If I want bigger guitars and I need something bigger, sometimes I'll do that too. Especially if it's someone with a stereo rig, especially with all these new campers now. Most guys are running stereo, so I'll start with everything full left or full right, and then I'll take one of those channels and move it towards the center if I want a bigger sound in that ear than just discrete right and left. And so I'll go through. If it's two different keyboard players, I'll work with them on opposite ends. If it's one keyboard player and he's playing two different keys, a lot of times I see keyboard players will play string pads or piano, string pads or organ with one hand, and they'll play piano or electric piano or some other kind of synthy thing with the other hand. So I'll left and right those, but I may not go full left, right, wide. I may go maybe 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock on those, so that, because to me, you're still hearing one person doing something separate with each hand. So I still want that to glue together pretty well in my ears. And so, you'll notice though that I'm trying to get stuff out of the center because I want to keep my kick and snare in the center as much as I possibly can. I really want to keep kick, snare, and bass guitar in the dead center, just like if I were listening to a recording. And also, that gives me plenty of volume and headroom to put that lead vocal in the center. So if I have one lead vocalist, I'm going to put them dead center. I'm going to mix them in. I actually mix vocalists a little into the music, because if a vocalist likes to pull back and forth a little bit, maybe they pull ahead sometimes and pull back sometimes. They're very expressive with their time. I don't want that to pull me around by having them super loud in my ear, so I'll tuck them underneath. Now, if I have one lead vocalist, I go straight down the middle with the lead vocalist, and then I'll fan out any background vocals, and I'll kind of play around with the width as much as I need to. If I have two lead vocalists, I'll kind of split and maybe go like 1 or 2 clicks to the left for one and 1 or 2 clicks to the left or to the right for the other. And that way, if they're doing a duet, they're not stepping on each other. I still hear them with a fair amount of clarity because there's just a little bit of width between them, a little bit of air between them, at least in my head. So instead of hearing them down the center, I'm actually kind of hearing them as if they're like a foot apart from each other. So it allows me to hear them both equally as clear. If one's doing ad-libs, or one of them has a specific vocal thing that he or she sings that lets us know we're going to the next section of a tune, I don't want the other vocalist to cover that up. So just a little bit of width between the two of them. You be surprised. You won't need volume at that point to hear them. You won't have to volume more between the two. Pan those background vocals out, kind of get them away from those. And I keep my background vocals pretty low unless I'm singing a background vocal. Oddly enough, the last thing that I roll in is my background vocal, because I want to set the stage for everything else that I'm doing. I want to make sure that everything that I'm listening to has its place. It's where it needs to be. I hear all of the pieces, parts that I need to do the best work that I can do and play complementary to those players. And then I'll put my background vocal in, and generally I put it right up the center with that lead vocal, and I only bring in enough for me to be able to hear myself well for pitch. One of the great things about these ESAs, the ESTs will do it too. If you work and get a good fit on it, find the right ear tips, You can get a nice seal on these. And once you get a good seal, if you sing, you get a little bit of bone conduction happening, a little bit of vibration in your head. And for me, I tend to get my pitch reference more from, or as much from, the bone conduction, the vibration that's happening in my head once I get a nice seal going, as I do actually hearing it through the mix itself. So between having the nice tonal center with the bass and the resonance of my own voice here in my sinuses, then I tend to rely on that as much, if not more, than the actual volume of my background vocal in a mix. In the studio, it's not something we worry about. So, so real quick, I have sort of an intermediary step to get I'm going to let you see me set up my headphone mix for this session, this tune that I've got to record after I get done with our live stream here. So I'm going to go over here to my DAW screen, except I don't need the face cam because I'm not sitting in the face cam. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to mix the rest of these tracks. Now, this would be almost like an extension of our digital mixer there. So you're looking at all the tracks in this Pro Tools session. Real quick, I'm going to play this back, and I'm going to start to pull in the rest of the instruments that I need to record these drums. And this would be, in this case, I would do something similar, just not on the actual Pro Tools line. Mixer line. I would do the same thing in the studio for this. So I'm going to play this a little bit, and we're going to see. Actually, those are all drum tracks. Let's get down here. There we go. So real quick, I'll make sure those are muted. Those are the guide drums, but I don't need those. Let's see. We got bass. We got a rhythm guitar. We got another kind of guitar, and then we got some. I'll leave the verb up. So let's play a little bit of this for a second. Just kind of see what we got going on here. Find out where the bass starts. Here we go. So just start here. All right. Oh, turned it off. Yeah, it's a surf rock record. So, and then real quick, while I'm sitting here, turn my mic off. Yeah, that's the first time I've heard that. So at least for me and my ears, if anything, I may trim back the guitars just a little bit. But I treated those faders in Pro Tools there. I just treated them like they were another few channels on my my digital mixer there. Those are the things that I would see. But you notice, I'm not killing myself with volume. It sounds really comfortable. If I need more volume overall, I'm just going to reach over and I'm going to grab my my overall volume there. I'm just going to pull it up. You'll notice that if anything, I'm on the shy side. Yeah, there you go, Paul. Yeah, surf, man, surf. If anything, I'm really just get back over there. If anything, I'm really just at that point, I'm just kind of bringing my mix up and down a little bit more for comfort. When I play, am I feeling it pretty well? But again, at no point do I want to feel like I'm blowing my ears out. If I've got a great mix, then I really shouldn't have to blow myself away with what's going on. It's a little bit of a different listening experience. I guess maybe because I've spent so much time in the studio the last 25 or 30 years, I'm used to not having a bunch of air moving at me. Used to when I was in a heavy metal band and stuff, I had a monitor rig that had two 18s behind it. So when I hit the kick drums, or if I did a double bass drum thing, man, like I felt like the wind was coming at my back. It was so big, But I guess at a certain point, I got used to not having that kind of thing anymore, just by being in this recording environment. You're not moving all of that air against your body. You're really just trying to go for a really good listening experience. Hear everything that you need to hear. If you're working with the same band all the time, you've got a lot more time to be able to really carve something out. To put something together that you really enjoy listening to. And because you can save it, if it's a working band that carries their own in-ear monitor rig, most of the ones that I work with now, whether it's corporate bands, wedding bands, traveling bands, I'm getting ready to start to do a bunch of dates with a new tribute act that doesn't carry their own in-ear monitors. So I'm going to have to get back into this mode of pull it together quick. Usually on those kind of things, we'll have 15 or 20 minutes to get our own sounds together. And then I'll have, depending on if we're carrying our regular band or if I'm having to MD a bunch of on-scene players, local players, reading charts, I may have anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half to be able to run through charts with them. And as I'm running through charts, I'm also kind of working this monitor mix to get what I need as we go. And usually I get it 90% of the way there. One of the things that I would probably tell you that's just a real world scenario is you're never going to have a perfect monitor mix. If you have a perfect monitor mix, then you can probably afford to have someone that's helping to jock your mix as you're playing. You're probably doing one of those huge touring gigs, and whether it's your drum tech that's helping with your drum mix, or you've got a dedicated monitor guy that's off to the side that's just for you. I know that there's some top touring vocalists that have their own monitor person that's listening to that mix. Unless you have that, your mix is never going to be perfect. You need to be able to hear the things that you need to be able to hear at a volume that's comfortable for you and in a way that allows you to do the best work that you can do. My most important thing is being able to hear the mics the way, or hear the drums the way that the mics hear them in a mix that's as approximate to what the front of house guy's probably going to do, so that I know how to play for the microphones and give that front of house guy a really good set of sounds to work with as he's mixing. And I find a lot of times I don't have to play nearly as hard when I do that, because I'm not fighting a bad mix, or I'm not fighting not being able to hear myself. I'm hearing myself at a comfortable volume. I hear what the mics are hearing. If I feel like that's the sound that I'm trying to put out into the world, then all he's going to do is make it louder, which is perfect for the room. And that way I can play at a level that's comfortable. If I need to play louder because it's a visual thing, I don't do a lot of those gigs anymore. Yeah, of course, I'm gonna adjust for that. But I've gotten on gigs with people that, especially guys that don't have as much week-to-week experience, where they're constantly fussing with their mix, trying to get everything perfect. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. Get it to where you can hear everything really well. It's balanced. If there's something you don't need to hear, get rid of it. If you don't need the background vocals, get rid of them. there, for whatever reason, if it doesn't help your performance, don't listen to it. One of the dirty little secrets that I'll share with you here as we're talking about this is if I have a player that has really bad time, if I have, especially people that rush, if I have, definitely if I have a bass player that rushes, I'm going to deprioritize that guy in my mix. I'm going to have the bass player loud enough in my mix to where I know he's there and I hear some low notes, but his rushing or dragging is not going to affect me. If I've got a guitar player or piano players, some of them can be pretty notorious for rushing. If they rush a lot and they're not listening to everybody and they're not pulling back into the pocket, I'll get them really low in my mix. Sometimes I'll turn them off. I had a touring gig I did a couple of years ago for about 10 months, and I never listened to the main piano player. His time was just that bad. And so I had him at a volume to where if he had an intro that didn't include me, if I wasn't playing drums, I could hear piano. I know he's playing an intro to whatever particular song he's playing. But as soon as the drums kicked in, I didn't hear piano anymore. And in those cases, the arrangements were so baked in that I didn't need to hear piano at that point. I felt like if he's not rocking with me, it's not my fault. And so, yeah, so if anything, it just helps to make your mix a lot clearer and a lot cleaner. If you don't need tom-toms, if you've got enough of the toms in your overheads drummers, don't put the toms in your mix because depending on how they've got your monitor mix set up, if they are gating it and you're not getting the gating, if you're hearing your monitor mix before all the processing, you're going to get a lot of open toms. And those open toms sometimes can really make your mix muddy. So for me, if I'm getting enough toms in the overheads, I'll either turn them off entirely or I'll have them just in enough so that I can hear the attack when I really hit the drum. But then the overall volume is under the rest of the kit. It sounds like it wouldn't sound good, but actually sounds great. There are times I don't have any tom mics on. It's just what's coming through the overheads. Kick, snare, overheads, done. That's it. The great thing about that is if it's not balanced, then you're not balanced. So it's a great exercise in that. I hope this has been incredibly informative for you. I don't know that I've ever taken the time to go through all of this, from how to put how to put a system together for yourself to how I put a mix together. But that's how I do it. And for me, it really does. In-ear monitors have made my gig experience a whole lot better. I really feel like most of the time I can hear what I need to hear. I can play in a way that I'm getting the sound that I want out of the drums. And if there's anything that's keeping me from doing the thing that I need to do as the center of the time for the band, I can make some adjustments so that it's not as influential. In the studio, I used to wear headphones all the time. I've got a very expensive set of AKGs that I bought 25 years ago that sit in that case right over there. They sit in that closet and never come out. I've got a really nice set of biodynamic headphones that are, really nice set of headphones I paid a few $100 for that I love to use when I'm doing percussion and when I'm doing maybe some background vocals occasionally if I want something that's on my head where I can kind of kick an ear off. But most of the time in the studio, I'm using in-ear monitors now. And because I can hear exactly what the microphones are hearing, I feel like I get a better sound in the studio than I ever have before because I know exactly what the mics are hearing. I'm not getting a whole lot of bleed. Most of the cans that you can wear, unless you're wearing like the Vic Firth isolation headphones, most headphones, even really good ones, $200, $300, $400 headphones, are going to have a certain amount of bleed that you're going to get from everything around. You're going to have to crank them up a bit more to get over the ambient bleed if you're a drummer. And I just find that I like this listening experience so much more. And just to give you a quick little look again, the great thing about the ESAs, they're a little bit larger housing than the last version, but they're not that much bigger overall, and they're certainly not as big as a set of moldeds. Now, they're closer to what the size of a set of molded ears are. Yeah, I bet if you're using regular old headphones or Apple headphones or something, Paul, I bet the bleed's nuts on your stuff. But that's going to get fixed in about 5 weeks. So I'm looking forward to making sure that you get those. Anyway, so yeah, the great thing about these is I might as well do this too while I've intended to do one of these for years with Session Ace. In fact, I'm going to clip this out as a separate piece just for Session Ace. Let's talk about how to put in a Universal Fit ear monitor, because here's how I see most people put in ear monitors. All right. They put them around their neck. They go bump, bump, bump. All right. And then there they go. And it's those people. Now, these are still kind of, the foam's still molded in my ear, but when you pull it out of the case, they just shove it in their ear like that, and there they go. And usually when somebody complains they're not getting a good seal on their ears, then we go through these steps that I want to show you right now. So what you want to do is, if you're using the foam, there's one step that you want to do first. You want to actually take the foam itself, take your 3 or 4 fingers and compress that foam. Now, we'll tell you this. Foam's not meant to last forever. I tend to change my foam tips out because I use them almost every day. I tend to change my foam ear tips out about every 2 weeks, because between heat and sweat and salt and all the stuff that happens when we sweat, especially you drummers, this foam, even with the expensive, these are the expensive Comply brand ear tips, this foam doesn't last forever. It's gonna deteriorate, and you don't have to do it every 2 weeks. You can do it once a month. It's just like a toothbrush. Hopefully, you're not using the same toothbrush that you had 5 years ago. Change these foams out on a regular basis. For me, it's about every 2 weeks. But what you want to do is take 3 or 4 fingers, compress the foam completely. And with a new set of foam, it's going to stay compacted a little longer than an older set. But here's what you're going to do. You're going to do 2 things. You're going to take that, you see where the cable is here. I'm going to go a little bit forward with the cable. And I'm also going to reach up, and I'm going to pull my ear up. So I'm going to put this into my ear with that foam compressed. The cable is actually pointing down. So you see how it's actually kind of down here. Now, before that foam completely comes back to full size, I'm going to spin this until it locks into place. And the whole time I'm holding, the reason you hold your ear like this, it's the same reason why when you put eardrops, or a nurse puts eardrops in your ear, if you're an adult, you pull up. If you're a child, I was a pediatric nurse for 5 years in the 90s. If you're giving a child eardrops, you pull down. If you're an adult, you pull up on the pinna of your ear, because that straightens out your ear canal. So you're going to straighten out your ear canal. You're going to start with this thing down, and you're quickly going to lock it into place. You're going to feel when you spin that it's going to lock into place. And you can see where the cable is in respect to my ear. I'll get as close as I can to this camera here. So you can kind of see now that it goes at kind of, for you looking on the screen, it's about 10 o'clock. And then the cable goes around the back of my ear, just like that. And once you get it locked into place, hold it, especially if it's a brand new set of foam, hold it for about 15 or 20 seconds, because you want to let that foam expand. Now, 2 things are going to happen. One of 2 things are going to happen. If you're not holding this in place, the foam is actually going to push it back out of your ear. It's just physics. It's what it's going to do. It's going to push the thing out of your ear. But if you're holding a slight pressure, don't hurt yourself, just a little bit of pressure, as the foam expands, then the foam is going to expand inward, because that's the only place it has to go, and it's going to expand outward. It's going to press against your ear canal a little bit, giving you a great seal. How about that? It's just as simple as start with it. 1, start with the foam compressed. 2, start with the earpiece down and spin it to lock it into place. Once it's locked into place and you feel like it's where it needs to stop, hold it there for about 15 or 20 seconds. And then you should get a really good seal. If for some reason it doesn't feel quite right at that point, just take the tip of your finger and just kind of wiggle it around a little bit. Let it fill that ear canal. Because at that point, if you're using the right size foam tip, that foam will adjust. And if for some reason you're still having some issues with leakage more than you'd like, or any at all, you probably need a larger foam. If you can't keep that thing in your ear, if it just keeps backing out until it falls out of your ear, try a smaller foam. And if you'll do this whole process, compress the foam, stick it in and twist it into place, and then hold it for maybe 10 or 15 seconds. Let the foam completely expand. You should get a really good seal. And occasionally, if I'm singing, it may kind of lose a little bit of that seal in between songs. I just push it with my finger. Ba-da-da-da. There's my seal again. Even the thing that people don't tell you about custom fitted ear monitors, even if you put the block in, if you sing, the thing's gonna move. Because your whole head is contorting as you sing, depending on how open your mouth is and how closed your mouth is. So people that have fitted plugs or fitted ear monitors have the exact same problem. I think the foam is a lot better at being resilient against that, because it's got a little bit of wiggle room. It's not got one direction to be able to compensate for all of that. Anyway, so that's something to know. I mean, if it backs out a little bit because you're starting to sweat, just boom, there you go. You're back in. If you haven't put them into place, you'll fight with these all night long. Now, if you're using the silicone tips, you can skip the little push down part, but the other part still stands. Have it come in with the cable more like about 7 or 8 o'clock. Put it in your ear and spin it into place as you're pulling up on your earlobe, even if you're using the silicone. That way you'll get a nice good seal on the thing. And then you can adjust. Some people like to put this, the little cincher really close to their head. I find, because I move so much, if that thing is too tight around the back of my head, that will be the thing that pulls my ears out. That'll do that on any kind of ear monitor, universal fit or custom. If this is too tight back here and you turn your head, this cable is going to get taut as I'm turning the wrong direction, and it's just going to pull out. It's just the way that physics works. You can only stretch the thing so long before something has to move. So I leave just a tad bit of slack. It's almost like it sits kind of on my collar. In fact, a lot of times what I do is I close this up to the point right just before, if I'm going to use one of the collar clips, I put this little cincher right above the collar clip. And then I put the collar clip on the back of my shirt. And so I've got enough play back here. I can turn my head however I want, and I'm not going to lose my ears at all. I've got plenty of slack. And with that cable clip, it's anchored to the back of my shirt, so it's not going to flop around too much back here behind me. And if you're using an extension, I always put this little extension in my back pocket, and I let a little bit of it stick out. So I just put the extension in my back pocket. This is sticking out a little bit. If you're using a wireless and you're on a pack, you don't even have to worry about it. Clip it to the back or clip it to your pocket. Or I've seen a lot of guys now that are doing the old gaff tape trick and gaff taping it to the back of their drum throne. I don't like that because I move so much on my drum throne, I'm going to end up breaking off the antenna. So that's why I don't do that with my wireless unit. If I had a wired unit where the wires are coming out the bottom, I might do different. But yeah, for me, I just stick the thing in my back pocket and I'm done. So that's a tutorial in putting these things in that I don't think I've ever done, and I've always meant to do it for Session Ace. And now we have it. It'll be on the website, and it'll be here on YouTube. So I hope that was valuable for you. And I really hope that this video, tonight as we're doing this as a live stream, I hope this has been incredibly helpful for you. I hope that you've learned a lot about how to put monitor mixes together, how to put your in-ear monitors in. I just hope that you found it valuable. That's why I'm doing this kind of stuff. I just want to share the knowledge that I have and make sure that as many people have it, because your experience, whether it's on stage or in the studio, should be as enjoyable as it can be. There are enough hurdles that you're going to have to jump over, whether it's bad catering or heat or a bad rental kit, or there are enough things that you have to no sleep, enough things you have to deal with on the road, or enough things in the studio, a song that really isn't worth putting anything on, that they need to go back and rewrite for another 2 days before they decide to let you do what you do. There's all kinds of stuff in the studio even that we've got enough things to contend with that bad sound shouldn't be one of them. So make sure that you put the best thing that you can put in your ears. And I don't say this because this is my company and I'm trying to sell you a product. I started Session Ace because I was making something for myself. The EST dual driver in-ear monitors that we make and sell for $200 are the exact ear monitors that I designed for myself to use on gigs and in sessions. And when I found out how much it cost to actually make these things, I was shocked at how inexpensive it was. I thought to make my own custom set from scratch was going to be thousands and thousands of dollars. Turns out it wasn't. It was thousands and thousands of dollars to get enough stock to sell them to you. But even then, we're able to sell them at a price point that that we're not doing what a lot of the industry does and marking the stuff up 30 times. We really have just enough margin to keep the company running, basically. Make it worth doing is what I say. I really want to be able to put these kinds of high-quality tools in the ears and hands of as many people that play music as we possibly can. Whether you're a professional musician, you're a weekend warrior, you're a hobbyist, you play with your garage band, and you guys want to save your ears for when you're old and decrepit and you still want to be able to hear your best friends on poker night, whatever it is. I just want to be able to put the best listening experience I can into your ears, and at a price that's not going to break the bank. And so, so take a look at, if you're looking for something that's incredibly reasonably priced, it's a really good listening experience, and that wears really well, take a look at the EST dual drivers. They're $200. That's $200 for the ear monitors and the entire accessory pack that comes with it. You can pre-order now. You can pre-order these version 3 ESAs. We just opened the pre-order yesterday. And for the first 500 units in the pre-sale, they're $425. Here's what I can tell you. For any of those other competitors that you're buying their in-ear monitors, their Universal Fit, and you're spending $400 or $500, you're buying about $20 worth of parts. And the rest of it is marketing, brand name, and all the hands it has to pass through before it, so that it can get from the factory to you. Along the way, all those people that handle that product have got to make a little bit of money. We sell directly through the website to you so that there is no middleman. There aren't 3 or 4 or 5 people that need to get paid, or 3 or 4 or 5 companies that need to get paid when you pull it off of a rack in a Guitar Center. It comes right from the factory, right to my office, and right from my office, it goes straight to you. And that's how we are able to keep costs low. And really, we're able to sink more money into buying better drivers and to buying better housings for those drivers. The ESAs are CNC machined aluminum, and they're really, really light, but they're really, really sturdy. We could put better cables in the packages than you would get in the $500 other competitor brands. Like, we can take that extra money that you'd normally be paying in markup and put it into the product. And at the end of the day, you're still getting an incredibly high quality product at a reasonable price. So that's as much of a sales pitch as I'm going to give you. If that doesn't convince you, then go buy something expensive because you want to tell people that you bought something super expensive. And hopefully this video for you and for my buddy Paul that's out there, I hope that this was incredibly informative for you. And if you like this content and you're on my YouTube channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button, give this a thumbs up. And if you're anybody in the world who cares about another musician, share this video with your musician friends so that they can have a better in-ear monitoring experience as well. Thanks so much. Be awesome to yourself. Be awesome to everybody else. Until next time, I'll see you when I see you.